Mastering the geopolitical board in Terra Invicta has always been a brutal challenge, and getting your hands on a superpower like the United States or China early on can feel almost impossible. But after spending many hours testing every strategy in version 1.0, I realized that the real trick isn't using brute force, but rather exploiting the right mechanics of influence and public manipulation. That's why I've gathered 10 quick and direct secrets to help you take control of the world's largest economies without wasting time. I'm Mary, and the video is about to start. If there's one thing Terra Invicta teaches you brutally and quickly, it's that without the right counselors from day one, you're basically handing superpowers to your enemies on a silver platter. And the two attributes that define or destroy your early game: persuasion and administration. Period. The first thing I want you to do is stop recruiting counselors just because they seem interesting or have high stealth. In the first few months, your absolute priority is getting counselors with persuasion 12 or higher. And here's why that number matters so much. Persuasion is the engine behind public campaign and control nation missions, meaning every point missing in this attribute is a direct hit to your chances of flipping a nation to your side. A counselor with persuasion 9 trying to run public campaigns in a large nation is simply a joke. Don't do it. Now, administration is the attribute most new players completely ignore, and that's exactly why they hit a wall so fast. Every point of ADM on your counselors directly increases your total control point, CP, cap, which means you can hold larger, more important nations without taking penalties. Think of it this way. Persuasion gets you inside a nation, but administration is what keeps you from losing it because you ran out of room to manage everything. The community consensus is clear. Any organization that boosts administration is a must-buy early in the game, no exceptions. So here's the practical play. Recruit at least 2 persuasion-focused counselors right away, keep them running public campaigns and control nation missions constantly, and simultaneously ensure your administration is scaling through orgs and stat investment. Don't wait until you're drowning in CP penalties to realize you needed more administration 3 months ago. Start the game with 12 plus PER and evolving ADM, and you'll be controlling superpowers while other factions are still trying to figure out how the UI works. Everyone starts out wanting to go straight for the USA, China, or Russia. I get the appeal. They're the biggest pieces on the board. Whoever controls them controls the game. But trying to grab a superpower right away without preparation is like trying to take down a final boss at level 1. You will fail, you will waste precious counselor actions, and the other factions will exploit every second of it. The secret that changes everything is called the adjacency bonus, and it's probably one of the biggest legitimate hacks in the entire game. When you control countries that border your target nation, your control nation mission receives a direct bonus to its success chance. And it's no small thing. Controlling Canada and Mexico before attempting the US gives you up to a +6 bonus on the control nation mission. For China, it works the same. Kazakhstan, Russia, and North Korea are the neighbors you want in your pocket before looking at the Asian giant. The logic behind this is simple and elegant. Smaller nations have much less resistance, cost fewer control points to hold, and serve as a strategic springboard for the real goal. You aren't wasting time controlling Mexico, you're building the perfect base of attack for the US. It's the difference between banging your head against a wall and walking through a door that was already unlocked. So change your mindset now. Stop looking at the map and going straight for the nations with the biggest flags. Look around them first. Set the siege. Surround the superpower through its neighbors. And when you finally send your counselor on that control nation mission, the success rate will be so high it'll feel like you cheated. You didn't. You just played smarter than everyone else. Do you know that classic mistake almost every new Terra Invicta player makes? They send their counselor straight into Control Nation mission without preparing the ground first. The result? Failed mission, wasted influence, and the nation stays in the hands of another faction while they laugh in your face. I did this a lot at the start myself. However, there is a step I used to ignore that completely changes this equation. It's called public campaign. The logic is as follows. Before clicking Control Nation on any country, you need the population mayor to already sympathize with your faction. The public campaign mission exists exactly for this. It builds popular support over several rounds, and when that number hits 50 to 60% or more, the Control Nation mission becomes absurdly easier to succeed. It's literally the difference between spending piles of influence on a bad dice roll and executing a nearly guaranteed takeover. And here's the point that matters most. Never skip this step, regardless of how much of a hurry you're in. Even if a nation seems accessible or you have a high per-counselor to spare, without prepared popular support, you are throwing influence in the trash. Every round of public campaign before Control Nation is an investment, and it's the kind of investment that pays off instantly without having to wait. So, the correct flow is this. The counselor runs public campaign, you watch the popular support rise, wait for it to hit the 50 to 60% range, and only then do you trigger Control Nation. It sounds simple, and it is, but the number of players who ignore this process and keep scratching their heads wondering why they can't hold big nations is huge. Do it the right way, save your influence, and take control faster than you imagine. Terra Invicta begins in 2022, but it's in 2026 that the board starts showing its real face. And if you aren't positioned correctly when that window opens, other factions will dictate the pace of the game for you. The good news is that the initial scenario hides an opportunity many people miss. India is right there, huge, accessible, and full of potential, waiting for someone smart enough to grab it before everyone else. India is probably the smartest choice for quick control in the early game, and the reason is simple. A massive population combined with a high democratic structure means less resistance in your missions. Compared to China, which offers absurd power in the late game but gives you a nasty fight in the first few months, India slips into your pocket faster and starts generating research and investment potential early. It's the kind of decision that seems minor on the map, but you'll be thankful for it 2 hours later when your faction is scaling while your neighbor is stuck in Asia. The USA remains the most powerful piece on the board if you execute the correct strategy, and you already know what that strategy is. Neighbors first. But here's the detail that separates those who dominate from those who just try. The window to take the US efficiently is early on, between 2022 and 2026. If you let that window close without having Canada and Mexico under control and US popular support building, the American superpower becomes a late-game objective that is much more expensive to conquer. So the practical plan is this. Use the first few months to secure India as your base of operations on the Asian side, while simultaneously building the siege on the US through its neighbors. Save China for when your counselors are more developed and your CP cap is robust enough to hold it without sinking. A player who understands this timing isn't just reacting to what the game throws at them, they are 3 steps ahead before any other faction even realizes what happened. There comes a moment where you look at the map, see a dozen nations under your control, and realize your control points are at their limit even though you have high ADM counselors. This is the sign that you entered the mid-game without thinking about the sustainability of your empire. And this is exactly where the country unification mechanic comes in to save your life. The logic is elegant. Instead of spending separate CP to hold France, Germany, Italy, Spain, and 10 other European nations individually, you work diplomatically to unify them into a bloc like the European Union. The result? The same territory, the same population, the same economic and military power, but at a dramatically lower CP cost. It's like trading 10 rental contracts for a single contract covering the same space. It works the same for other regions, the Great Caliphate in the Middle East, the African Union on the African continent. The pattern is always the same, and the benefit is always massive. The mistake most people make is leaving this strategy for when they are already in a CP collapse, trying to put out fires. Country unification needs to be an active goal in your mid-game planning, not an emergency solution for the late game. When your CP cap starts getting tight, you should already have the unification process underway, not just starting to think about it in a moment of panic. So start thinking about your map not as a collection of individual nations, but as blocks that need to be consolidated. Every unification you complete is like gaining extra inventory space without needing to equip a new item. In the late game, when other factions are suffering from exploding CP and losing nations due to a lack of management capacity, you will be secure, expanding, and still have room to grow. That's the difference between a player who survives the late game and one who dominates it. Not every nation will fall into your lap peacefully. Sometimes you arrive in a region you want to control and it's already in the hands of a rival faction, shielded with high popular support and enemy counselors actively defending the territory. Public campaign won't work fast enough, and a direct control nation is influence suicide. This is the moment you need to stop playing nice and start playing dirty. And the game gives you the exact tools for that. The combination of increase unrest, followed by a coup d'etat, is the most aggressive and efficient way to break a rival faction's protection in locked territory. The unrest mission eats away at the nation's stability over several rounds, weakening the structure that keeps the enemy faction comfortable in power. When that stability is low enough, you send a counselor with a high command attribute to execute the coup, and when it works, control of the nation changes hands drastically and immediately. What makes the strategy especially powerful is what happens after a successful coup. Besides taking control, you receive CP bonuses and the nation's entire political structure is redistributed in your favor. It's a total reversal rather than a gradual takeover. Instead of spending months building popular support against a faction that is actively countering every public campaign of yours, you knock over their board all at once. It is highly efficient, especially when time is against you. The point of caution here is that this requires a counselor well developed in command, so it's not a card you'll have available in the very first months. But as soon as that counselor is ready, identify which rival nations on the map have the most fragile stability, start unrest missions on them in advance, and keep the coup ready for when the window opens. A player who masters this combo doesn't wait for an opportunity, they create the opportunity from scratch. Terra Invicta isn't just a game of conquest, it's a game of management. And one of the most quietly impactful decisions you will make in every controlled nation is what to do with its resources. The investment screen looks simple at first glance, but choosing spoils without thinking about the consequences is one of the most common mistakes that turns a promising empire into a collection of broken, unstable nations by the mid-game. Spoils works like a loan, with absurd interest rates. You get quick cash now, but you pay a real and permanent price. Reduced knowledge, increased unrest, and brain drain, the loss of talent that literally weakens the nation's scientific and economic capacity in the long run. In the early game, in wealthy nations where you need quick capital to scale your space projects or recruit counselors, spoils has its place, but it's a short-term tool, not a management strategy. The trio you want to prioritize as soon as the financial situation stabilizes is knowledge, economy, and unity. Knowledge directly feeds your research and your faction's technological development, and in Terra Invicta, whoever falls behind in the tech race doesn't recover that ground easily. Economy keeps the nation generating healthy income without the destructive side effects of spoils, and unity maintains internal cohesion, reducing the risk of instability that other factions love to exploit against you. Think of your controlled nations as long-term assets, not as sources for a quick loot. A nation strong in knowledge and economy in the mid-game is worth infinitely more than a sugar-coated nation that you drained of resources early on just to get a few extra credits. Use spoils surgically, consciously, and only when necessary. And when it's no longer needed, stop immediately. Smart resource management is what separates those who are still expanding in the late game from those who are trying to put out fires in a collapsing empire. If you don't already have the habit of checking the organization market every 15th of the month, start now. This is one of the most important rituals in the game, and most new players find out too late that they were sleeping while rival factions bought the best ADM and PER orgs before them. This monthly window is small, competitive, and the best organizations disappear fast. Organizations that grant +1 or +2 administration are literally gold for their CP cap. Every point of ADM a counselor gains through an org is one more point of control capacity that you didn't have to spend months training. It's pure, immediate, and cumulative efficiency. Similarly, orgs that increase persuasion directly amplify the effectiveness of your public campaign and control missions, which, as you already know, are the heart of any expansion strategy. There is no more profitable early game investment than these two categories of organizations. And here's the detail that takes this strategy to another level. If a plus ADM or plus PER org is already in the hands of a rival counselor, you have the option to execute a hostile takeover to steal it. Yes, the game lets you do that. It's aggressive and it can create diplomatic friction with other factions, but when you need that specific organization and it's blocked, sometimes stealing is simply the most efficient move available. Don't leave the best gear in the game in the enemy's hands due to a lack of aggression. The right mindset here is to treat the org market as an active race, not a passive shop. Note it down. On the 15th, open the market, prioritize plus ADM and plus PER, and buy before anyone else. If you arrived late and the org went to a rival, evaluate a hostile takeover. With the right organizations on the right counselors, your CP cap scales naturally, your control efficiency skyrockets, and you start looking like a veteran player even if you're still in your first few hours of the game. One of the first questions I used to ask was, how many counselors do I need to actually start controlling nations? The short answer is 2, but not just any 2 counselors. You need counselors built specifically around high persuasion, with well-defined roles from day one. Without this duo working in sync, you'll be stuck running missions with low success chances and wasting influence that you'll desperately need later. The first counselor is your closer. PER 12 or higher is the minimum, and they need to be equipped for both public campaign and control nation. They are the one who will cross the finish line, the one who will hit the final nation takeover button once the ground is prepared. The second counselor has a humbler but equally essential role. They run public campaign non-stop, building up the target nation's popular support round after round until the number gets where it needs to be. 2 distinct roles, 2 distinct counselors working in parallel. And why does this division matter so much? Because public campaign is a repetitive, continuous mission. It needs a constant presence in the target nation to move the popular support needle. If you put everything on a single counselor and try to have them do both, you'll be toggling between building support and premature takeover attempts, breaking your rhythm and wasting influence on control nation attempts with low success rates. 2 counselors make the process flow cleanly and efficiently. The rule of thumb is simple and has no exceptions. Public campaign until about 50% support, only then do you hit control nation. It seems obvious when you read it like this, but the number of players who ignore this process because they want immediate results is massive. Resist the temptation. Let the duo work, and when the support hits the right range, control nation will be a mere formality. This is how you stop praying for a good dice roll and start controlling the outcome before the mission even starts. The USA is the biggest piece on the board in Terra Invicta. Largest military, largest research capacity, largest global influence. And you know the irony? They are completely accessible if you follow the right order. It's not luck, it's not infinite stat grinding, and it's not waiting for the perfect moment. It's a 3-step sequence that, when executed correctly, puts the American superpower under your control in less than a game year. The sequence begins with Canada and Mexico. No exceptions. You already know why. The adjacency bonus that directly raises your success chance for the U.S. Control Nation mission. With those two neighbors in your pocket, you send your high-per counselors to run public campaigns in the United States non-stop until popular support hits 50% or more. Only then do you hit Control Nation. Following this order, what seemed like the hardest conquest on the map becomes a logical and almost predictable progression. Within 6 to 8 months of gameplay, the American flag is yours. But taking the U.S. is only half the job. The other half is fixing what you inherited. The United States arrives with high inequality and internal tensions that, if ignored, will generate unrest and open gaps for rival factions to attempt a counteroffensive. The solution is to invest heavily in unity right after the takeover. This stabilizes the internal democracy, reduces instability, and starts fixing the structural problems that make the nation vulnerable. There's no point in conquering a house and leaving it on fire. When you stabilize the U.S. with high unity and start directing resources correctly, what you have in your hands is simply the greatest combined machine of research and military power on the planet. No other nation comes close to this level of output when it's running at full steam. Other factions will be fighting for smaller pieces of the map, while you turn the U.S. into an engine that accelerates every aspect of your faction simultaneously. Done in the right order, it is the investment with the highest return in the entire game.